It began like any ordinary night, a young father at home, his children fast asleep, and everything seemingly calm. But behind those walls, something was terribly wrong. When help was finally summoned, the police were left speechless by what they discovered inside. A man, badly injured and too weak to walk, bore the marks of pain that had accumulated over months, perhaps even longer. No one saw it coming. No one realized how dire the situation truly was. What transpired within that house? How did things escalate to such a point without anyone noticing? This is the story of a hidden nightmare and the man who survived to share it. Born on August 17, 1995, in the quaint English village of Stewartby, Alexander Skeel entered the world facing immense challenges. He and his twin brother Luke were born prematurely, with Alexander weighing barely 1 kilogram. Immediately after birth, he was placed in intensive care, fighting for his life. His early days were filled with surgeries and uncertainty, yet he persevered. Once he overcame his fragile health, Alexander found solace in an unexpected place: soccer. The sport became more than just a hobby. It was an escape, a source of joy that carried him through childhood. He played regularly, especially on weekends when the pressures of life seemed to fade away. Though sociable and surrounded by friends, Alexander had little interest in dating. Romantic relationships simply weren't a priority. That changed dramatically at 16, just after finishing secondary school, when he met the girl who would alter the course of his life: Jordan Worth. Born in April 1995, Jordan was known for her quiet strength and deep compassion. From a young age, she dedicated herself to helping others, volunteering at animal shelters and fundraising for children in Africa. Like Alexander, she was deeply involved in sports, excelling in gymnastics. Her academic dedication and kind heart earned her admiration from teachers and peers alike. Despite her shy demeanor with strangers, Jordan had a rare ability to connect with people once she opened up. This gentle, sincere nature drew Alexander to her when they met in June 2012 at a university presentation facilitated by mutual friends. The connection between them was immediate and undeniable. Jordan came from a loving home and dreamed of becoming a teacher with plans to study fine arts. Her warmth and genuine interest in Alexander made him feel seen in a way he hadn't before. Their relationship blossomed quickly, and for Alexander, having a girlfriend was a new and exhilarating experience. He was happy, and his happiness was evident. Jordan soon became part of Alexander's social circle. When the twins' parents left town for vacation, the boys hosted a party with childhood friends, and Jordan fit in effortlessly, at least with the friends. The dynamic with Alexander's family, however, was more complicated. His mother, Geraldine, was never fond of Jordan. She viewed her as difficult and critical, someone who didn't respect or understand the family's way of life. Geraldine's disapproval was far from subtle, creating tension that would only grow over time. By the spring of 2013, cracks began to form. An unsettling incident occurred during Jordan's 18th birthday celebration when the couple traveled to London to attend a musical. While Alexander stepped into the hotel bathroom for a moment, Jordan vanished. He searched for her for hours, frantic. When he finally found her, she was downstairs at the hotel reception, laughing as if nothing had happened. This incident left Alexander confused, and his parents were alarmed, considering her behavior erratic and possibly manipulative. But Alexander, still a minor and deeply in love, refused to see it. He stood by Jordan, convinced that his parents simply misunderstood her. His devotion blinded him to what others could clearly see, and he didn't yet realize that he might be the one making a mistake. That year, during the twins' 18th birthday celebration, the course of their relationship shifted. What had started as a fairy tale was slowly giving way to something far more complicated and possibly dangerous. Among the nearly 100 guests was the teenage daughter of Geraldine's closest friend, a 15-year-old girl who became the center of an unexpected altercation instigated by Jordan. In front of a stunned crowd, Jordan lashed out at the younger guest, igniting a public scene that shocked everyone in attendance. Furious and embarrassed, Geraldine asked Jordan to leave, but instead of complying, she refused. The tension escalated, and Alexander, overwhelmed and in tears, begged his mother to let his girlfriend stay. One of Alexander's closest friends stepped in, gently pulling him away to the bathroom in an attempt to calm him. He tried to explain that Jordan's behavior was unacceptable, but Alexander, blinded by emotion, couldn't see things clearly. Eventually, Jordan did leave the party, but the fallout lingered. In the weeks that followed, arguments between the couple became frequent and volatile. The turning point came during one of their heated disputes when Jordan snapped Alexander's SIM card in half. That moment jolted Alexander into clarity. The warnings from his family, the tension, the manipulation, it all suddenly made sense. He realized the relationship had become toxic, and for the sake of his well-being, he ended it, convinced it was the right choice for both of them. But peace didn't last long. Just months later, Jordan reappeared with shocking news. She was pregnant. Despite the emotional weight of the announcement, Alexander remained calm. He was willing to step up as a father, but made it clear he had no intention of reviving the romance. Following that firm stance, Jordan vanished. An entire year passed without contact until 2014, when she sent a message to Geraldine introducing a newborn named Thomas, born in May of that year. Jordan arrived at the family home with the baby in her arms. Geraldine, initially cautious, was immediately taken by her grandson. But when Alexander found out his mother had welcomed Jordan back into their home, he was angry. He didn't understand how his mother could let her back in. Yet Geraldine stood firm. She loved her son, but also wanted a place in her grandson's life. Eventually, she persuaded Alexander to meet Thomas, assuring him that Jordan would not be present. Nervous and uncertain, Alexander asked his grandfather, Gerald, who he was extremely close to accompany him for emotional support. Seeing his son for the first time changed everything. In that moment, Alexander decided he wanted to be involved. He wanted to be a father. This choice led to renewed contact with Jordan. Surprisingly, she appeared calmer and more grounded, transformed by motherhood. What began as co-parenting gradually shifted into something deeper, and in early 2015, they announced their reconciliation. But not everyone welcomed the news. Shortly after getting back together, Jordan once again crossed paths with the girl she had attacked during Alexander's birthday celebration. Without hesitation, she repeated the assault, triggering another crisis. This time, Geraldine had had enough. She issued an ultimatum. This behavior would no longer be tolerated. But Jordan responded with an ultimatum of her own. Alexander had to choose between his family and his son. Faced with unbearable pressure and feeling a duty to protect Thomas, Alexander chose his son. In May 2015, he and Jordan moved into her parents' home. At just 19 years old, Alexander's world changed completely. He became isolated from his family and lifelong friends, but this separation was not entirely by choice. Behind closed doors, Jordan began to tighten her grip. She dictated what Alexander wore, how he styled his hair, and who he spoke to. She even began messaging his loved ones using his phone, pretending to be him to push them away. Eventually, she changed his number altogether. Over time, Jordan's control became all-consuming. The relationship morphed into something far darker than anyone could have predicted. Alexander, once full of promise and freedom, found himself trapped in a life where his choices no longer felt like his own. What began as emotional control soon spiraled into relentless psychological abuse. Jordan often accused Alexander of being unfaithful, insisting without proof that he was secretly messaging other women. These false claims became routine, each one a calculated attack on his confidence and independence. But one incident crossed a line that few could imagine. She told him that his grandfather Gerald, his lifelong anchor, had died. The news came, she said, from a message passed through her own mother. Alexander broke down completely, weeping for hours, devastated by the thought of losing the man who had helped raise him. But after watching him suffer in silence, Jordan casually admitted it had all been a lie. The death never happened. It was just another tactic, another way to remind him that love in her world came with punishment. This kind of emotional torment became Alexander's daily reality. His connection to his support system, his family, his friends, faded as he sank deeper into isolation. In July 2016, seeking a fresh start, the couple moved out of Jordan's parents' house with their son Thomas, hoping to build an independent family life. For a short while, things appeared to improve. In their new home, with a child to care for, they decided to try for another baby. Not long after, Jordan became pregnant again. The announcement brought hope, but the calm didn't last. Control soon tightened into a chokehold. Jordan took Alexander's wallet, broke his phone, and forbade him from working, forcing him to quit his job as a youth football coach, a role he loved. Every part of his life was now under surveillance. She made him attend every one of her university classes at the University of Hertfordshire, convinced he'd use the time alone to visit his parents. Even his online identity wasn't his own. Friends began to notice a new social media profile under his name, filled with angry, hateful messages that didn't sound like him. Their suspicions were correct. Jordan was behind it, crafting a digital version of Alexander to keep others away. Soon, psychological torment gave way to physical violence. During a visit to a local fair, Jordan forced Alexander to swallow an entire pack of sleeping pills, punishing him for a betrayal that existed only in her imagination. Thankfully, the dosage wasn't lethal, but the intent was clear. She wanted to erase him piece by piece. Food became another tool of control. She began withholding meals, and Alexander's weight dropped to alarming levels. When he tried to stand up for himself, she twisted the narrative, making him believe the problem was him, that he was the reason for their suffering. At night, the torment escalated. She waited for him to fall asleep, then struck him on the head with a glass bottle she kept by the bed. Once startled awake, she would interrogate him with strange questions, tearing at what was left of his emotional stability. Jordan's violence became indiscriminate. She used whatever she could find: glass bottles, clothing, wooden sticks, even a hairbrush. One day, while driving together, she turned suddenly and struck Alexander in the mouth with that brush, shattering one of his teeth. In agony and desperation, he yanked it out himself. But it didn't end there. As time went on, the attacks grew more vicious. Jordan began using knives to make superficial cuts on his body, always stopping just short of causing serious harm, but never without leaving scars. The violence was escalating. By early 2017, Alexander was nearly unrecognizable, physically and emotionally drained, a shell of the young man he once was. No one from his family knew where he was. They hadn't seen him or heard from him until one day in February 2017, when he managed to make a single desperate call. He reached out to the one person who had always protected him, his grandfather, Gerald. That call changed everything. Within hours, Gerald, along with several loved ones, rushed to the address Alexander had given them. Until that moment, they hadn't even known where he lived, and what they found would mark the beginning of a long and painful road to recovery. When Alexander's family finally located the house where he was living, they received no answer at the door. Concerned, they contacted local authorities. Officers arrived and questioned both residents. On the surface, everything seemed normal, except for one chilling detail. Alexander's walk was uneven, pained, and clearly affected by physical trauma. It raised silent alarm bells. On May 2, 2017, Jordan gave birth to their second child, a daughter named Iris. For a brief moment, Alexander hoped that, just like with their son, motherhood might soften Jordan. But the peace was short-lived. Days later, the cycle of abuse resumed with growing intensity. Despite the relentless violence, Alexander stayed, not out of love for Jordan, but out of fear. Fear that she might turn her rage toward their children. In interviews, he later described this choice as a heartbreaking act of protection. Then came the breaking point. In late May 2017, Jordan threw boiling water at Alexander during a heated argument, cornering him in their home. Scalded and in agony, he begged to sit in a cold bath. She allowed it, only to drag him out moments later, threatening to burn him again if he disobeyed her. The following days were the worst of his life. Then, in early June, she attacked him with a serrated bread knife. Bloodied and with deep cuts on his hands, Alexander tried to bandage the wounds using a football sock. A neighbor, alarmed by screams echoing from the house, called emergency services. But when authorities arrived, Alexander did what so many victims do. He blamed himself. Jordan stood behind him, calm and composed, telling officers that Alexander had a tendency to self-harm. Just days later, on June 10, 2017, the police returned, this time for a welfare check. An officer, immediately struck by Alexander's visible injuries, managed to pull him aside and ask to speak privately in the patrol car. Though hesitant, Alexander finally opened up. After years of silent suffering, he told the truth. That day marked the end of his nightmare. Jordan was arrested on suspicion of assault, and Alexander was taken to a safe location and given a proper meal, the first in months. Medical professionals were stunned by his condition. He was severely malnourished, his body breaking down. Doctors warned he had less than 10 days to live if he hadn't been rescued. They also discovered he had developed hydrocephalus, fluid buildup in the brain caused by repeated blunt force trauma to the head. During her police interrogation, Jordan denied everything. She claimed Alexander had chosen to isolate himself from his family. But her own words betrayed her. She casually described her methods of abuse, the objects she used, how she wielded them, reenacting scenes with a disturbing lack of remorse. On September 28, 2017, 17 charges were formally filed against her, including grievous bodily harm and coercive control, an offense only recently recognized under UK law. At her trial in April 2018, Jordan pleaded guilty to all counts. But Alexander believed it wasn't out of remorse. It was strategy. She seemed more affected by the fact that she'd been caught than by the damage she'd done. Later that month, she was sentenced to 7.5 years in prison for serious bodily harm, with an additional 6 months for coercive control. The sentences were to be served concurrently, and she was placed under an indefinite restraining order. Her conviction was historic. Jordan became the first woman in the UK to be sentenced for coercive control since the offense was codified in 2015. For Alexander, the verdict brought both relief and sadness. Years of trauma had distorted his emotional compass, but in that moment, he felt a long overdue release. Justice at last. In June 2018, a review of Jordan's sentence was requested on the grounds that it was unduly lenient, but the court upheld the original punishment. Then, on July 4, 2023, Jordan was released early after a parole hearing concluded she no longer posed a societal threat, a decision met with public outrage. Many believed it failed to reflect the true scale of her crimes. Alexander, however, chose not to dwell on her release. Instead, he focused on rebuilding his life. Today, his world revolves around resilience, fatherhood, and advocacy. His children are still too young to understand the truth, but he has preserved every court record and document so that one day, when they're ready, he can tell them the story himself. He has returned to coaching football, this time with a powerful message. His team's uniform proudly features the contact details for Mankind, a UK charity supporting male victims of domestic abuse. As an ambassador, Alexander speaks out for those who are often overlooked and unheard. One physical reminder of his past, a tattoo Jordan forced him to get, has been transformed. Today, a roaring tiger covers the mark, symbolizing the strength and survival he fought so hard to reclaim. He has shared his story publicly through interviews, documentaries, and awareness campaigns. Each time he speaks, he chips away at the stigma surrounding male victims of abuse. Alexander often reflects on how close he came to dying, and yet he survived. Now he believes he did so for a reason. His mission is clear: to help others recognize the warning signs, escape toxic relationships, and know that survival is possible. For Alexander, what began as a tragic ordeal has become a powerful testament to human endurance and a message of hope for countless others. Thanks for tuning in. Don't miss out. Subscribe now for more thrilling investigations.